Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Gameweek 12 pod of the FPL Wire, powered by DreamSetGo. I'm your host, Zoph, and I'm joined as usual by my friend, Big Man Bakar. How are you doing, buddy?
All good, Zoph. It's been a while, actually, since the three of us have podded together. Unfortunately, I joined last week, but due to connectivity issues, it really didn't go through. So I'm looking forward to spending the next 2 hours with you guys on here.
I like the kit you've got on. Why don't you show us off your kit? I don't think he was able to hear me. Elar, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm wondering why Bakar has the Chelsea kit on. There's a United Chelsea game on in a couple of game weeks now. I wonder that's why he's kitted in blue. This looks like a little bit of a 2v1 this time against me. But yeah, batteries are recharged, all ready for the 10 game weeks of football that we have in 40 days. Bring it on, bring it on. It's almost like Christmas for us FPL lovers. So yeah, bring it on. Ready to go.
Speaking of celebrations, Bakar, you've been busy this international break. Tell us more.
Extremely. I've enjoyed my time out. I'm well prepared for the roasting that I'm going to have
It's not
over the
roasting.
next 10 minutes.
I mean, I hope our viewers will permit me. I think they can see this beautiful fixture and they'll permit me to
Sure.
quote this Indian song. The first time we are quoting Indian on this podcast. But I think the moment deserved it. आंखों ही आंखों में इशारा हो गया बैठे बैठे जीने का सहारा हो गया. Please tell us, Bakar, who was making you smile on the other end?
I mean, there's a very famous phrase, Zoph. It's called reading between the lines. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Between the
I
lines.
think it's up to the subjective wisdom of our listeners. This was one of the most happening localities here in Lahore, Pakistan. I got it booked over the weekend, and I thought I'd chill over lunch. So this was it basically. Whatever the backdrop says, whatever my ruffled hair says, that's up for you to interpret. I will say no further.
So when are you announcing on Twitter, Bakar? That's the question I want to ask. Because we know when are you announcing on Twitter.
What do you know?
We know. I mean,
There's one more Indian song
What
that
do
is
you
to be
know is
quoted.
what I-
ये
what do you
public है,
know?
ये सब जानती है मेरे भाई.
I mean, this goes up on Instagram, and you're smiling. It's a beautiful picture, and you're seeing eyes on the prize. You've been conveniently missing for most part of the last month on the podcast due to
Conveniently missing, okay.
connectivity issues. I think connectivity was strong rather than it being an issue in the past month. And then you said,
Okay,
you know what? No FPL, no problem. And I wonder why that is, because Zoph and me were certainly missing FPL.
Because he was
So-
reading.
so-
He was reading between the legs. I mean, sorry, lines.
Zoph, my closing remarks on this whole pictures thing would be that you commented when I posted it that my DMs must be more flooded than the whole Chennai, right? I don't know how flooded they are, but trust me, they're more wet than the roads on Chennai.
Boom.
Moving on to more important matters.
I have to read the DSG thing after all of this.
Make sure you're chopping that out in the edit.
This one is not
All
safe
right.
for kids.
All right. Go
Moving
for
on.
it.
Oh, I'm gonna try to
Good
get
luck
through
with
this.
good luck with that.
You wanna try reading it this time?
There's no chance. No chance.
A quick word about our sponsors. DreamSetGo is a global portal for fans to gain access to sporting events around the world. Accommodation, flight tickets, hospitality, stadium visits, everything can be tailored exactly to your requirements. They also do celebrity experiences, which include masterclasses with your favorite sports celebrity or something as simple as birthday shoutouts. You can find links to the products in the description below.
All the stats on how did he manage that? I'm still recovering from the start to the
You have
pod
to
that
read
we
your
had.
bit still.
Yeah, exactly. I am. All the stats that you see on our podcast are from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. Subscribe if you haven't already. And to become a member, you can click on the links in the description below. Right. Let's get into the football and FPL. What do we have first off?
First up, we have this table from Andrew Gower on Twitter. It is double-digit hauls against. I know Mark did something similar on Black Box. Now, this is specifically with a view to ascertain fixture difficulty for certain teams. Now, we can see some trends over here. Norwich have conceded the most double-digit hauls away. Guess which team has conceded the most double-digit hauls at home? Ranil.
The team whose
Seven.
kit I'm wearing at the moment.
7 double-digit hauls
Yeah,
conceded
yeah.
for United at home. So you can't even smirk when I say United at home is a good fixture. It literally is a good
No, I
fixture.
mean, we're going to be discussing a lot of new managers later in the episode. I was hoping that one of them would be for my club, but things haven't changed at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
Brendan Rodgers on the way.
yeah, life is playing jokes on me at the moment because uh, I've been thinking about if Broch does become a United manager, how I deal with that because I've been trolling him for the best part of the last 2 or 3 years. He's a good manager, just not somebody I rate very highly. I don't think he's an elite manager capable of managing a club like us. I learned to love him, but yeah, just wanted to put that out there. Let's discuss the
I
FPL.
wonder how many ex-Liverpool managers have managed United.
0. Don't think that's ever happened.
Right. So again, just some other trends over here. Burnley away, much more leakier than at home. Only one double-digit haul considered at home. That immediately stands out. You see the right at the bottom, Man City, West Ham, Chelsea, and Liverpool. Again, show that these guys are very much the top sides. Brighton also only 5. Leeds, surprisingly, only 5. You'd expect Leeds to be right up there. That's what we saw last season, but I don't think they're as leaky this year. We should take note of that.
Only 7
but they've
goals
had
conceded in the
they've
last
had-
7 games.
They've had good fixtures recently, though. That's worth pointing out. I was actually going through their stats in detail, and Leeds in the tougher fixtures against Liverpool, West Ham, Everton were back when they had Richarlison and DCL, and against Man United, they've had like almost an average XG conceded of around 2.7. So, I mean, they're doing well in the easier fixtures, but I still don't sort of rate them very highly in the big matches.
That's fair enough. Now, what this means now for the teams in the next few games. Now, this is a tweet from Andrew. Adding the halls together, taking into account home away fixture of each team. So next 5, Newcastle. This is basically a summation of the next 4 opponents. Added up to that, 24, Spurs, Burnley, Leeds,
Just
Palace.
Zoph, I'll just be clear. Yeah, what this means is that this is an outcome of the table we saw in the previous slide, where now what this means is Newcastle is facing in their next 4 game weeks 4 opponents that have conceded a combined of 24 double-digit hauls who they're playing against. And similarly, it's 18 for Spurs, which is very good for people diving into Heung-min Son or Harry Kane. It's about playing the fixtures, right? And these teams that Spurs are facing in the next 4 game weeks have conceded 18 double-digit hauls so far this season. Burnley have playing teams that have conceded 18 double-digit hauls. Leeds are playing teams that have conceded 16 double-digit hauls. I was quite surprised to see that because Leeds fixtures don't really look that good on paper.
That's because Spurs over there occupy a large point of it, but Spurs are a different animal now. So
Yep. I think you need to wipe the slate clean. Anytime you're doing any analysis related to Spurs, I don't think you take their numbers this season into account at all because they've been a dysfunctional team. So we'll talk about that a little more later. And Crystal Palace, good to see there because there's a new player in my own FPL team and 16 double-digit hauls. The bad fixtures are for players who own Leicester, which is again surprising because after Chelsea, the next 3 fixtures are pretty decent. But Leicester opponents have conceded only 9 double-digit hauls in the next 4 game weeks. After that, Zoph, can you just shift to the slide?
Yep.
Southampton 7, City 6, Aston Villa 6, and West Ham 6. I think for City and West Ham, it doesn't really matter that much because what we'll see also in the future slides is they've been just a good team in attack. Anything else you want to cite from this chart, Bakar?
Not necessarily, but all I have to say is that with a lot of new managers now coming into play, we've got to take some of these stats with a pinch of salt. As you rightly said regarding Spurs, now we have Dean Smith at Norwich. Aston will have a new manager as well. So I mean, it's important to sort of take things into context because historical stats might not be as applicable in certain scenarios, and with Newcastle as well. There are a lot of teams with new managers.
Absolutely spot on. Move on to the next set of data.
Yeah, let's go.
There's some other charts he's prepared for us. The only teams that have failed to score so far, Liverpool are the only team that have failed to score. West Ham have only failed to score in 1 game. And Chelsea, again, impressive. Leeds have only failed to score twice. 3 times, quite a few over there. Quite a few teams, including Manchester City. You have Palace, Southampton, Brentford, Brighton, Man City, United, Everton.
It's a bit of what we've seen with City under pressure this season, right? Where they sort of panic and start playing quickly and don't know what to do. This has happened a fair few times, and I'm not surprised to see City having not
Especially
scored
they
in
go
3
down
games.
early. When they go down early is when they panic.
Yeah, exactly. That plan B is a little bit of an issue. I saw a little bit of panic from Liverpool as well. I thought West Ham were absolutely phenomenal, but the second half performance from Liverpool against West Ham wasn't very convincing, in my opinion. I'm surprised and happy to see Chelsea on there because the perception of a Tuchel team is that it's a defense first team that's not scoring many goals, and the data that we're going to see further is going to tell us that perception is wrong. I also want to point out that Leeds and Newcastle are two very, very interesting teams here. Because Newcastle, everybody thinks that, okay, they're a poor team, and we've been dissing them pretty much most of the season on the pod. But it's interesting that they've blanked only in 2 games. So, yes, while defensively, they're a very poor team, they do have. Lively attackers who are really, really good players and capable of scoring against anybody. This is what we've seen so far. So that I think is very interesting. And now they have and that it's interesting because they were under defense first managers, and now they're under Eddie Howe. So I think that's quite interesting.
Absolutely. Anything to add here, Bakar? Move on to next slide.
Yes, I want to actually talk about Newcastle. You just pointed out that they've failed to score in just 2 games this season. I think that's more of happenstance rather than their attack actually having performed well this season. Because when you look at their numbers, they're actually the second worst team in terms of XG. And you would notice that in certain matches, for example, in the previous fixture against Brighton or very recently when they played Spurs, they weren't really in the game. Throughout the game, they were struggling. All they got was half a chance and they just took it. I still don't think I rate their attack very, very highly. So I mean, for me, there will always be a team to target for clean sheets. But having said that, now with Eddie Howe at the helm, I do expect things to improve with regards to their attack.
I've got quite an interesting West Ham stat also that I actually want to read out. Across 2021, that is the full year since January, the Hammers have been the third best Premier League team with only City and Chelsea bagging more EPL points. And during that time, they scored 62 goals in 33 games, and only City have bettered that this year. That's an interesting statistic because Moyes' team is certainly capable of scoring a fair few goals and against anybody. And as an Antonio non-owner, I'm not sitting comfortably with that stat.
He is the
They're,
chosen
they're
one.
fourth in the league for XG this season, and they're doing really, really well. Even you saw them against Liverpool. Even from the eye test, I was one of those who had Antonio on the bench, and I was breaking it throughout. I mean, he could have had a few opportunities to score. There was this one-on-one chance where he sort of miscontrolled the ball. There was another where Bowen chose to pass to Fornals and did not pass to Antonio. So I mean, he is getting into great positions. The West Ham are creating opportunities. Regardless of fixture difficulty.
Yeah, I'm talking about West Ham. This particular table, the game scored 3+ goals, and you see West Ham, 4 games. Very
exactly.
impressive.
I mean, a lot of people are talking about, Antonio's done, or, they're looking to sell him at the moment. I don't own him at the moment, and I'm looking at ways to get him back into my team, probably around game week 16 when the fixtures turn. That doesn't really matter with West Ham. So, but I do want to have a placeholder or a plan in which I'm making sure I'm getting Antonio back. Both of y'all are, I think only Utkarsh now is Antonio. Now looking to
Bakar
sell at the
also
moment.
has. Right?
No, I
had him on the
yeah,
bench.
I have him as well.
Had him on the bench last.
I had him on the bench last week. Yeah.
What's your thinking with him? Holding, looking to sell?
Holding. I still think he's one of the better forward options out there, and I think he's going to represent great value. So unless he gets injured, I don't think there's a reason to get rid of him.
Okay.
Zoph, you're on the same page?
Absolutely same page. And he's been banging in the goals on international duty. It's nice to see.
Yeah. Yep. Anything else from this table? Want to talk about United because we've been under Solskjaer and we've not really been a good team. We've been a Jekyll and Hyde team, but we have scored 3+ goals on 3 occasions this season. And I mean, it's the simple reason that happens is because we do have enough talent in attack at the moment. Whether we are under a manager who knows how to make our team function or not, there's enough talent on the pitch to score goals against poor opposition, which is what we're going to be doing in about 4 game weeks when we go on a good run of fixtures. So you do need to put aside that perception that United aren't really playing good football because we are capable of scoring against anybody because of the quality of the players on the pitch.
Only defensively where the problems have been from game week 1, I would say.
Yep, agreed.
Scoring isn't really a problem. Games conceded. 3+ goals, and Villa 5. 5 times Villa have conceded. So Gerrard, we'll talk about Gerrard a little bit later. Spurs, also, I don't think that's going to be happening too many times now going forward.
Yeah. The top 4 teams are the ones with new managers.
Interesting.
All the 4
I mean,
teams on the top.
probably a consequence
Exactly. So
consequence of this stat we see, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
exactly. Because when they've been beaten badly.
Yeah, what's interesting here is that Wolves and West Ham aren't conceding or getting a hiding from anybody at all. They've never conceded more than 3+ goals this season. So when you're captaining against these teams, it's something that's worth considering.
Exactly. I actually wanted to talk about West Ham. I mean, at the start of the season, I didn't think they'd be one of the better defensive teams this season, but they're actually doing very well. They're ranked 6th for XG conceded, which is very good considering how open they were last year. I think they've been a bit unfortunate in terms of some of the goals they've conceded as well. So, so those who've owned West Ham defenders have kind of been unlucky in different times.
What's interesting there is Watford and Burnley as well. Something mentioned, because both the teams we sort of look at as whipping boys. I immediately see a fixture against Watford or Burnley. I immediately think lots of goals. That may not be the case.
So one thing about Burnley I've noticed in particular is that at home they're still a decent side. I mean, they don't concede as many chances they do away from home. They're at home, they're still okay. I mean, even in some of the difficult fixtures, they've looked decent at home.
I think they'll tighten up now. This is when Burnley sort of get into their groove between game week 10
exactly.
to 13.
Burnley will always be Burnley.
When the cold kicks in, Burnley gets going. Anything else to add, guys? We'll move on to the new managers.
Yeah, but just before we move on, I just want to give another shout to Andrew Gower. All the charts that you saw in the previous 5 or 6 slides, they're all from Andrew Gower. You can follow him on Twitter at GOWERAMG. I think he's an excellent account to follow. Always throws very, very interesting stats. So make sure you guys are following him. Thanks, Andrew, again for these charts.
Thank you. Right, so we'll just do some quick words on tactics. We won't go as exhaustively as we did under Conte. First up, Eddie Howe. Most of you guys who are watching will be familiar with his game plan up at Bournemouth. The fullbacks got a lot of action going forward, like somebody else on the spot. The wingbacks... the wingers...
Zoph, I'm wearing a Chelsea shirt, man. For fuck's sake, be easy on me.
So the swearing is out. Oh my God.
Now this is definitely not safe for kids.
Yeah.
So I think Frazier will probably come back on one side. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Probably ASM on the other wing. I think that's what he's probably. I don't think he's going to be playing ASM where you see King playing in this picture. I think. But
I don't even think you can rule out Matt Ritchie, because he used to play one side of the wing for that Newcastle team also. And if that happens, we have an out of position Newcastle defender.
And his chance creation numbers are very good. Richie is the one guy who's actually been posting decent numbers in that team. So that's definitely one thing to monitor. But who do you think is going to be playing this King role? That's what I'm interested in, more so than Wilson. That number 10 or maybe Willock?
Potentially Willock. That's what. And you don't even know if he's going to apply the same formation, right? Because it's been a while since Eddie Howe has managed a club. So he'll certainly have evolved as a manager, and you don't know what he's exactly going to do in terms of setup. But we do know that he likes playing front foot, possession-based football. Even in his interviews for Newcastle and his previous interviews for Bournemouth, he's always mentioned how he wants to look at trying to win a game and not think about not losing. It's always front foot football with him, and it's going to be a tough transition for that team. It's not going to be a very easy transition for that team, because Newcastle for the best part of last 6 years have been a counter-attacking team. They've been a sit deep and counter-attacking team. They don't really know how to control a game, and Howe wants that. So I don't think that transition comes in very quickly.
I was chatting to a few Newcastle fans over the break, and they seem to think that that if Howe plays for the back, they really don't think they have the personnel to do so, and they simply lack the quality at the back. So they were of the opinion that Newcastle will actually struggle even more defensively if Howe adopts a more expansive approach. And we know from his past experiences at Bournemouth, his defenses have never really looked organized. They've been extremely open.
And inconsistent in general. The Bournemouth team was very
I think
Jekyll and
with Howe coming in, I personally think that with Howe coming in, Newcastle can actually be even more of a team to target. And we will be discussing Brentford later, but I think if he is to play an expansive brand of football, then this could be a good fixture for Bumo and Tony this week.
Let's talk about this since you touched upon it. That's something we should discuss. A lot of us are holding Bumo and Tony. So what do you think as the outlook? I assume this fixture you want to keep it. What is your general outlook for them for the next 4 weeks?
Zoph, I'm still planning to keep them. It's simply because at this point in time, I don't think there's a better, cheaper option than Tony. You look at the other alternatives. There's King, there's Benteke, there's Edward. I don't really think anyone sort of stands out. There's Huang. I still think Tony is the best amongst them because particularly going into this Christmas period where you need lane ball players who are likely to play 90 minutes. I still think he's a decent option to own. I think I'll own at least one of them over the next month or so. I might sell one of them, but I think I'll have at least one of them because I still think they represent good value, and one poor game against Norwich is not going to change my opinion.
Ronald?
I'm in agreement with Bakar. And I'm more likely to hold on to Tony than Boomer because there are greater options available in Boomer's price range compared to Tony's price range.
Correct.
And also Tony's more of like Bakar mentioned, he's more of a 90-minute man compared to Boomer as well. So
and that's huge
penalties.
In this period, right? And we've not really touched upon the fixture congestion that's coming with now these games every 2-3 days. We have 10 game weeks in 40 days. The value of a 90 minutes guy who's on penalties at 6.5 is pretty good. So I think if you have great. Tony especially, should be held.
Exactly. And Zoph, I mean, Boomo is, I don't know. I mean, I was a bit concerned to see him playing the last sort of 20-25 minutes of the Norwich game as a wing back. He was actually playing as a wing back, but when Force came on, they were playing with two up front. And so I don't know about Boomo's potential going forward. I sort of have my doubts. I still think he's good to go this week, but he's one worth monitoring. While Tony, I'm more sort of sure about long term because you know what you're getting with him. He's going to be a reliable player in terms of his consistency of starts, and he'll get points here and there to present value.
For what it's worth, I still think Boomer is the more dangerous one in open
It's
play.
interesting because I was just over the break, I was rewatching the pod that we did with Luke about Brentford, and he mentioned that last season Foss was the one who actually partnered Tony up front, and Boomo played on the wing a lot. As a wing back.
That was a different formation.
No, right? As a wing back, in the wing back formation, because Rico Henry was injured.
Exactly. Worth monitoring for sure. And it is worth mentioning again because this downturn in performance for Brentford has happened because there's 4 or 5 first team injuries now. We've got Raya who's injured. We've got Christopher Ayer who's out for 2 or 3 months, if I'm not mistaken. Right. We've got Janet, like you mentioned in your article on Fantasy Football Scout, who's created the most number of chances.
Jensen, not Janet.
Jensen, who's created the most number of chances in that Brentford team as well. So they are dealing with a few injuries. But I have a question for you boys. If somebody has money, is happy with their team at the moment, let's say they've got the Spurs boys in place, would you recommend moving from Tony to Wilson?
Short term, yes. I like short term because I think that over the next 4 game weeks, he's going to score 4 goals at least.
Yeah, you've been very bullish on Wilson. You think he's a great pick for the next 4 weeks. So you are for that move, aggressive play if you're happy with everybody else.
Because ultimately, let's have a quick look.
Right. Correct. So if you're getting Wilson, you get him now, or else you wait and watch. You don't think it's worth it even for that 2 game week period in 14 and 15? Just for those 2 games? Too short for that. Not worth the transfer. Yeah, exactly. I think if you're moving, you move now.
I personally won't make the move even now because I don't think there's too much of a difference between Wilson and Tony. I like Wilson because he has a 50% goal involvement.
Its sound is muted. Just checking in the chat. Yeah. All right, cool. So just it's fine now. Okay. I'm sure it will be fine. Just letting you guys know that we were discussing Wilson and Boomo and whether Zoph would consider making a short-term move from Tony to Wilson if there are no other fires in the team, and he's for it. Bakar is saying he wouldn't probably make the move because Zoph thinks that the time to make jump on Wilson is right now because the fixtures are good in the next 4 game weeks and not after that. That's all that you guys have missed since there was sound
Correct. I
problems.
had forgot to add my new mic on this scene. That was my bad. Now it's working.
Yeah, I was just saying that personally, I think there are more pressing transfers to make than selling Tony for Wilson. I like Wilson as a pick, don't get me wrong. I mean, he has one of the best mins per XGI in terms of forwards this season, and his goal threat is far significant than Tony. But given the FPL climate so far, we're looking to get extra funds um, for the likes of Kane in the weeks to come, and other players as well. I mean, some of us don't own Jota, Foden, etc. So I think there are more priority transfers to make rather than sell someone like Tony to Wilson, because I think both of them will score similarly over the next like 6-7 weeks. Maybe over the 4 weeks Wilson outscores him, but I'd still rather have the cheaper option. And another thing regarding Tony is that many people sort of in the FPL community think that he's the stereotypical kind of striker who's likely to get a lot of goals, but his goal threat this season has actually been a big concern. He's had just the 2 big chances, with the exception of penalties, in 11 games so far. So it's not as if he has massive goal threat. He's heavily reliant on penalties. But the good thing is that he's actually third when it comes to joint big chances created. So he is likely to take along. I don't think he's an explosive asset to own, but I just think he's probably going to represent value.
Correct. Do we move
Right.
on? Anything to add
Before
on
we
this?
move on, I just want to cite a few. I just want to talk about a few Eddie Howe stats that I found were quite interesting. And despite their budget, Bournemouth in their 5-year stint in the Premier League, they were the 7th highest scoring team in the league on 2 occasions. So just wanted to talk about the caliber of that Bournemouth attack, and they've never conceded lesser than 60 goals in their 5 Premier League seasons as well. So just talking about the kind of attack and the kind of defense that Eddie Howe had in those 5 seasons. Richie, in a good season where he was playing right midfield for that Bournemouth team, he clocked 4 goals and 8 assists, which I think is a really, really healthy number. So that is something I wanted to add as well.
Right. We'll quickly.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Yes.
The audio issues are fine. This chat is a bit lagging behind. Let's move on.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'll just do a quick round, the basic breakup of Gerrard
Yep.
style. This is taken from Smarter Scout. I know Villa are a bit of a wait and watch with fixtures, but I thought we'll just touch upon it because otherwise we'll get shit from Liverpool fans. This top formation he's used is 4-3-3. Now, the one thing that I remember about Gerrard, and a lot of people talk about this Scottish fantasy which they play is his fullbacks. Apparently, his fullbacks get forward a lot, so that's something to be keep monitoring when the fixtures get better. They do have good attacking fullbacks in Cash and Target. He recovers possession in open play a lot, so it's generally the same pressing style we see from a lot of teams. And generally, all of it points towards an attacking philosophy rather than a defensive one for Gerrard. Should be fun.
For sure. The next few fixtures are tough, though. I think it's definitely a case of wait and watch.
Well, it's disappeared for a second. He'll be back with us. Should we move on to the next section? We are talking about Jota stats. Now, Firmino is now pretty much out till mid-December. Pranil, you're back with us? I think he'll be with us.
Yep, I'm back.
Cool. You want to walk us through the Jota table which you made for us?
Yeah, you can hear me, right?
Yes, I can
now?
hear you fine.
Yes.
All right, nothing. This is just a non-penalty plus XG plus XA table this season in terms of what has happened so far. Just wanted to cite some attackers that have stood out. And despite the limited minutes that Diego Jota has played this season, his numbers look really, really good. And I think he's going to be pretty nailed for the next few game weeks. So, it's something Zoph and me spoke about last game week as well. And we jumped early on a player like Diego Jota because when you have a Liverpool striker, 7.5 million as a midfielder in the game, he's too much of a gift to ignore. And we also know that Mane and Salah are going to be going to the AFCON pretty soon. So I think Klopp might want to just stick Jota in and let him stay there for the future period because he's that important to the team right now. And I also think he might not rush Firmino back into the squad because I think Firmino is going to be really, really important in the period Salah and Mane go to the AFCON. So he's going to be reliant on Firmino being fit for that period at the moment. And I just want to cite that we know for sure that these players are going to be missing 23 and 24. And they also might be missing game week 20 and 21 because there's a stipulation that they're supposed to join their squads for training a little earlier. We don't have clarity on that situation at the moment, but it's just something you keep your eye on. Another name that stood out on this chart for me is Jared Bowen. 5.6 non-penalty XG plus XA so far. In the last 7 game weeks, since the time he started, he's behind only Mo Salah for XGI. And he's a 6.2, 6.3 million midfielder, currently under 3% owned in the game. So I think a lot of people are going to be jumping on him very, very soon, especially around the game week 16 mark when the fixtures are turning for West Ham. So these are the two names that quite stood out to me that I wanted to chat about.
Right. And this isn't even per 90. This is with Jota's limited minutes, which is the most incredible thing. In fact, it's worth mentioning. I know, Pranil, you didn't want to, but I think it is worth mentioning. If you look at per 90, then I think Salah is at 0.9 and Jota is 0.89. So effectively, you're getting 11 million, 12 million midfielder at 7.5. Is he higher priority than Son? What do you think, Bakar? Bakar, why don't you talk about that since you don't own Jota?
I don't own Jota. I don't own Son. I am firmly in the Jota camp. I think he's one of the most high priority transfers to be made this week. Some very interesting numbers that Pranil shared. I just want to add to that. A lot of us, I didn't own him during that run, but a lot of us managers in the FPL community owned him in that spell from game week 4 to 7. And despite his incredible numbers, he seemed to let a lot of people down because he wasn't converting the chances and the returns weren't exactly matching the underlying statistics. But it's still worth mentioning that during that spell between game week 4 to 7, when he was actually starting, he was 4th for big chance involvements and 5th for XGI. So his numbers were right up there and he was matching the premiums. So at this price of 7.5 million, he's an absolute bargain to be had. And I think that there's not much between his and Son's potential moving forward, even when you look at Spurs' next fixtures, because in my opinion, Liverpool have been the best attack in the league when it comes to their underlying numbers, XG, shots in the box, big chance, etc. So it's just the fact that he's almost 3 million cheaper than Son. So if I had to pick one, I would go with Jota.
Interesting. And do you look at that this week, even though the fixture is Arsenal, would you bring in Jota this week or Son?
I would still bring Jota this week. I was actually having a look at the odds, Zoph, and Jota was 46% to score. Son was 46% as well. Liverpool were actually far more likely to score 2.5 plus goals. So even the bookmakers are sort of agreeing with this decision, and the fact that you know what you're getting with Liverpool. I don't sort of know exactly how Spurs are going to be under Conte. With Liverpool, they're going to be, they're going to be on and they're going to come out all guns firing, especially after their loss against West Ham. I'm sure Klopp will be out to get all 3 points, and I'm fairly sure that Liverpool will score quite a few goals in this fixture.
I think there are a few other factors at play also. I think you also look at the length of Robertson's injury, if he's out for a short time or a long time, because most of us own Trent and Salah at the moment. So do you go for a 3.9 million Simicast that enables spending more funds in positions that I think the template will need soon enough? That's a factor to consider. It also depends on whether you made up your mind on Son and Kane. If you've made up your mind on Son and Kane, and if you're leaning towards Kane, I think you go Jota. I think these are the factors that sort of matter as well in terms of whether you go for Jota or Son, because it relies on these two important bits of information as well.
Another factor, now that you're bringing Simicast into the discussion, I was actually having a look, because when I talk about Jota, I don't look at the fixtures, because Liverpool, in my opinion, are sort of fixture proof when it comes to attack. But when it comes to defense, I'm not as sure about the double up. Their fixtures coming forward, I'm not really sort of sure. If Zoph, you could bring the ticker up, we could see that. I mean, I won't be as confident. Even with, I know it's a 3.9 million defender, but it's coming at the cost of not owning Jota. It's not as if Jota is much pricey either. He's just 7.5, so he's a bargain to be taken advantage of as well. So I'm not sure it's worth the opportunity cost of letting Jota go.
The fixtures, since you had mentioned them, are Arsenal at home, Southampton at home, Everton away, Wolves away, Villa at home, Newcastle. I think this is when Firmino is expected back. So you might get up to the Newcastle game. So that's 6. I actually don't think any of these are difficult fixtures for Liverpool. I mean, There isn't a quote-unquote difficult fixture for Liverpool
I mean, the
anywhere, but
fixtures are all right, but they're not great from a defensive point of view.
they've
is
not
my
been great
point.
defensively overall, Liverpool, but it's about Shimika's attacking threat. I think even midweek for Greece, he created 7 chances.
He's a great fullback. I actually mentioned on Twitter that I think it's a little bit of a silver lining because I don't think Robbo has been that good this season. Even in that West Ham game, there was so much space on Robbo's side, and he just wasn't creating too much. I don't think he's a bad player.
He's not created much. And the thing is, when you set the standard, you're measured by your own standards. Robbo
Exactly.
has set the standard at left back for the last 2-3 years, and he has not been at them this year.
Yeah. And Tsimikas has shown enough in the first few games to show that he's able to drive in and create chances from that side. So I, in fact, think it might make the Liverpool attack better rather than worse.
Right, and we also don't know how bad Robbo's injury is. We saw him limp off against Scotland. We don't even have a timeline yet, so monitor that.
Yeah.
Zoph, what is your opinion on Jota versus Son?
I moved for Jota already last week, and that tells you where I stand.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Can we just circle back to the Aston Villa chat just for a second? I just want to cite a couple of Gerrard stats that I found quite interesting.
Sure.
Yeah. Just, we were talking about Aston Villa earlier in the pod, having conceded a lot of goals, having conceded 3+ goals on a lot of occasions. That's actually the change that Gerrard brought about the most in Rangers, because in the seasons prior to when Gerrard was appointed at Rangers, they conceded 44 and 50 goals in the 2 seasons before that. And then when Gerrard was appointed, he really tightened them up, because after his appointment, they conceded 27 goals in his first season and only 19 goals in his next season. And in the title-winning season, the last season, they kept 26 clean sheets and conceded only 13 goals in 38 games. So he does know how to shore up a defense, and I thought it was worth mentioning. And that's why I think it's a good thing that the Villa's fixtures line up the way they do, because there are tough fixtures in the next 5 games, and we get to wait and watch in terms of what they're doing and how they perform. But the fullbacks are really, really advanced in a Gerrard team. The 2 fullbacks that were playing for Rangers in a particular season, one of them, Tavernier, he was on pens as well, so you do take that into account. He scored 12 goals and had 9 assists.
Yep. He's a
And
perma cap
out of this,
almost, I heard, in the Scottish game.
exactly. Out of the 12 goals, seven goals were pens. So you still have 5 goals and 9 assists from one side, and from the other side, you had 1 goal and 6 assists. So the returns from the fullbacks were really good, which is why Matty Cash automatically comes onto your radar. And he's taken a bit of inspiration from Klopp as well, because he used to be sort of an assistant manager and used to manage the second team for Liverpool while Klopp was still at the helm. So he has taken a bit of inspiration from him, and like Liverpool, he likes to have his inside forwards. So Leon Bailey and Emi Buendia could be interesting options.
Correct.
A little later.
They're like double number 10s who sort of like come inside a lot.
Exactly. Just wanted to mention that. Yep.
Right. You want to talk us through some of now these Kane images you have sorted, and you have let everyone know that you've bought Kane already.
Yeah, already bought Kane. Because and I do want to give a caveat here, because a lot of people are telling me that it's easier and you buy the player that's more convenient to your team. And I just want to mention first that I sold Kai Havertz and Aubameyang, and I could have gone for either Son and Wilson or Kane and Gallagher or ESR, and I went for the Kane plus Gallagher route. So it wasn't like I could easily get only one option, not the other, and actually rate Wilson as a better option compared to ESR or Gallagher. But I'll at least mention why I went for Kane, and I think it's close between the two. But you need to sort of predict, and it's a bit of subjective, opinionated analysis, because, like you said, we don't have numbers here to decide whether Kane and Son are good options. Now, one thing is that we've not seen anything from Kane and Son this season, purely because they've been a dysfunctional team. Is Antonio Conte capable of making them a functional team? In my opinion, he's one of the best coaches in the world, so I do think he's capable of making them a functional team. Now, more often than not, I think the good players do well in good fixtures. Now, what do we know? We know for a fact that Kane and Son both are world-class players that have gotten at least 20 returns in the last 5 or 6 seasons. They're consistent elite performers. So do I expect them to do well under a really good manager? Yes. It's the leap of faith that you take. Yeah. And if you're giving me an argument that they've done nothing this season, their numbers are terrible this season, I think you wipe the slate clean and you look at the more subjective factors that come into play. Now, what did I want to see from the first 2 games in that Spurs team? when I was trying to analyze the performance of these players. It was the position that these players took up. Now, what I saw in these first two games was Harry Kane was more of a number 9 that he's been under Nuno and that he's been under Mourinho. Under Mourinho, he was almost a 10, 9.5. Even under Nuno, he used to drop deep a lot. It wasn't the case. And we'll just quickly run you through these screenshots. Can you move to the first ones off? As you can see here, Moura's on the ball and Harry Kane is just making the run behind the last line of defense. This was pretty much happening a lot of the times. Son was like a 9.5, 10 player, but he was always in position behind Kane. So when Spurs had possession of the ball, so Kane's role was to be the number 9, and Son was sort of behind on the wing, sort of like an inside forward Liverpool sort of position. So I just wanted to mention that. Move to the next slide. They used their wing backs a lot, so a lot of crosses did come into play. It just wasn't effective because Conte's had 5 days with his team in the 2 games that they played. I do think that this changes quickly because the big problem that they have is the quality of the players that they have at their disposal aren't really that good. And in both the games, we saw that once Moura was subbed off and once Lo Celso came into play, Spurs did look a lot better, and they used their wing backs a lot of crosses in the ball. And every time they crossed in the ball, Kane's role was to be in the center of the box to put that headed goal into the net. And it's about the patterns of play that you're trying to predict, right? What kind of play are Spurs going to do? What are they going to do? Through which you try to make the judgment. We can move on to the next slide. Again, this is Spurs in possession against Vitesse, where also, I completely forgot to thank Bakar343, who provided us with all these charts in his excellent thread. If you haven't already checked out their podcast, they did an hour and a 15-minute long podcast on their channel, Just Above Average FPL. I highly encourage you to check it out because it's the guys that host the podcast are Spurs fans, and they've got great insight. And they got Gianni as a guest this week as well, who is basically one of the most knowledgeable Italian fans around, and he knows a lot about Antonio Conte as well. So I thought it was an excellent listen, and I think you guys should check it out. A lot of my opinion comes from them as well because I'm reliant on Bakar and I trust his insight when it comes to something like this as well. So like you see, again, Kane was above on top of the pitch, and in possession, his role is to be the number 9. Move to the next slide, Zoph. Also, Kane and Moura led a lot of the pressing. Son didn't do too much pressing, which was quite interesting because this leads to subs. And what's happening here is that in both the games, which were tight games, Son was hooked off and Kane wasn't. And we might see that correlation because at Inter, what happened was Lautaro Martinez was also subbed off a lot more than Lukaku. Lukaku was subbed off maybe 7 or 8 times, and Martinez was subbed off around 20-25 times. So that might be an interesting dynamic. And the rumors are from the Spurs camp that they might shift their formation from a 3-4-2-1, which is what they've been playing, with Kane as the number 9 and Son and Moura on the other side, to a 3-4-1-2. And I think that makes full sense because they need a creative passer in that game. They need somebody who's able to break the lines in that team. And I reckon either Ndombele or Lo Celso coming into that one position, and it'll be Kane and Son up front. I still expect Conte to put Kane closest to goal. So just wanted to mention that as well. You can move on to the next slide. One thing, though, is that the next game against Leeds United actually suits Heung-min Son a lot more because off the ball and on counter-attacks, Son was the main weapon. And that's obvious because he's a lot more mobile and quicker and faster compared to Harry Kane as well. Move on to the next slide. Just talking about the wing backs here as well. Again, Kane dropping deep. It was always a front 5 attack. Every time they attacked against Vitesse or Everton, it was a front 5. And like how it is under Tuchel, Conte's wing backs are attackers more than defenders. They're very heavily involved in play. So both Reguilon and Emerson Royal are going to be really good picks, I reckon. The insight is that actually Royal looks a little more assured on the ball and looks like he has a little more quality than Reguilon. But Reguilon is finding himself in spaces a lot closer to goal. That said, Bakar did mention that Reguilon has a tendency to fluff a lot of his chances. And if he doesn't start converting those chances that fall to him, Conte might not show as much patience as he does. And there is a Sessegnon waiting in the wings just to take that position because he's very highly suited to this position. And Conte is not afraid to make changes. There's Bergwijn as well who's capable of playing on that side. So Reguilon seems like a keen learner. So we just wait and watch what happens there. Next slide.
Royal.
This is something that we saw a lot in both the games. A lot of crossing from Royal and Region, and both of them were assigned to be on the back post or inside the box when the other person was crossing. So he likes to flood the box with these players, and it's always at front five. So whenever they're countering, one thing is because of the lack of mobility that Kane has, Son was always in front of him because he just takes a little less time to compared to Kane to get there. That's all.
Like Kane is still, that's the thing, he doesn't have pace. That's probably the one
Doesn't
thing
have
he's
pace.
lost the most. Probably all these injuries
Yep.
of the Everton game.
Yeah, similarly, what we see in possession, Kane is the furthest up the field. Very, very similar images. Just wanted to, reinforce the point in terms of how they position themselves. Move on to the next slide. Similar here, Son is the man behind Kane. Kane was always the man closest to the goal. Next slide. What we see here is, Region crossing the ball from that side, and it was Emerson Royal who actually had a headed chance with which he hit the bar, if I'm not mistaken, as well. And then there was another chance where it was a little bit of a break where Son passed the ball to Kane, who was furthest up the field. Kane made a run on that right channel, crossed the ball to Region, and again, Region fluffed a fairly easy chance as well. So this is what's been happening in the past two games. And I spoke about... And now that we've spoken about this, I'll talk about the reasons why I went for Kane over Son. There are 2 or 3 macro factors, meta factors that were in my thinking. I think very, very soon everybody's going to start shifting towards a structure which involves having a premium striker up top. I wanted to park my funds up top because in 4 or 5 game weeks, Ronaldo's fixtures become really, really good, and Lukaku's back fit and training in that Chelsea camp as well. So the outs, if this Kane thing doesn't work, are really, really strong in terms of Lukaku and Ronaldo. So that's one thing that's a factor. I don't think it's that big a factor because when it comes to switching these players, it's just one extra transfer. It isn't a big deal. It's one extra transfer. But also another factor that was in my mind is that I liked. For me, it was a case of Wilson plus Son or Kane plus Gallagher, right? I like the number of options that are there in that mid-price midfield bracket as well. Whether you're talking about Gallagher, whether you're talking about ESR, whether you're talking about Cornet, whether you're talking about the Aston Villa midfielders who are going to come into play as inside forwards for that team, whether you're talking about Trossard, who is now constantly being played as a false 9. I think there's just such a big volume of options in this mid-price midfield bracket. And the second thing is, I wanted to have the option of captaining somebody else in game week 15 and 16, where Spurs are playing Brentford and Norwich at home. Now, when they're playing Brentford and Norwich at home, from what we've seen so far, I expect Spurs to have more possession compared to their opposition. And those games are more Kane games than Son games. I'm just not comfortable captaining Son. And I'm not saying I'm not going to captain Salah, but at least if at all Salah's performances dwindle, or if I feel like going the other way, if Kane scores 2 or 3 goals in the next 2 games, I'm just much more comfortable captaining a Kane compared to a Son. That's it.
Fair enough. Bakar, what's your position on this?
Yes, so firstly, I'd start by talking about the wingbacks. Pranil highlighted how further up Emerson Royal and Region were playing. Now, so this is a quote from Region in his interview very recently. He says, "I'm enjoying the position because I can attack more. Conte wants me to be solid in defense, but at the same time, I have to arrive in the box, help the strikers, score goals, give assists. Now I have more of a chance to score goals and give assists, so let's work on this formation." So this is exactly music to the ears of someone who's looking to invest in a defender. When it comes to wing backs, even at Inter, I was going through the numbers, and 45% of Inter's goals under Conte have been contributed either one way or the other by the wing backs. So that just tells you how involved they are going forward in Conte's system. We've seen in the past with Marcos Alonso, Victor Moses as well, and very recently with the Hakimi at Inter. So that tells me that I think one of these two is going to be a big bargain going forward. It's very hard to decipher which one of them is better right now, but I have an eye on both of them, and I think either could represent good value going forward. Particularly with Conte, he will keep clean sheets. His record in the past with Chelsea kept like 16, Inter in 2 seasons respectively 15 and 14. As far as the Kane and Son debate is concerned, I think I agree with Pranil. He mentioned the option of a captaincy in game week 14 and 15, when Liverpool have Everton away and Wolves away, while Spurs have Brentford at home and Norwich at home. While the second factor is the Ronaldo one. The third factor I want to talk about is the fact that Conte has had a lot of success working with strikers in the past. So under Conte, Lukaku scored 47 goals in 72 appearances. Tevez has had 19 in 34. Costa got 20 in 35. And even when he was commentating on the Euros, he was actually a pundit. He did say that as a coach, I'd always like to keep Kane in the box because he's a quality player and that's where he's clinical. So these are the kind of quotes which tells me what Conte thinks of Kane as a player, and he wants him to be in the positions where he gives himself the best chance to score. So in my opinion, I'm very clear on Kane being a better option than Son going forward.
I'm in
I also
agreement
just
with
want
you
to
guys.
mention as a caveat that I don't think Son is a bad pick at all. If you own Son, he's going to be he's a world class player, and he's going to give you value for the 10 million, especially in the next 4 fixtures. I don't think he's a bad pick at all. We're just citing a reasons and why we think Kane is the better pick. That's all. And it's just
Zoph,
an
what do
opinion.
you think?
I think it's a little bit on Conte, maybe. I definitely think Kane is a better option than Son. But in general, I know Conte, you have to keep in mind, he still had very little time to work with these guys. Most of these guys have been away on these international matches, Kane, Son, and stuff. And even before that, there were a few days. And we mentioned this during the last episode also. He's not had a full preseason with them. He's not had midweeks off with them. So I think the first point of his order of business is going to be shoring up the defense. And the things with Conte, you're not going to see blowouts. It's very rare that, especially the way he's going to set up now, I think you might see a lot of 1-0s, 2-0s, and then they'll probably go and try to control the game. You're not going to see 4-1s, 4-2s. That's not a Conte game. So maybe a little bit temper your expectations in that sense. And this week, I do agree Kane is a great pick, but you don't need to break up your team to bring him in for a hit necessarily. I don't think he's shown that. Maybe we should temper we don't want to push like we have any sort of Kane agenda over here. We're being very clear about that. He's a good pick, but I don't think it's even necessarily worth him taking a hit because Leeds numbers, let's just quickly touch upon those. Leeds defensive numbers have been quite good off late in terms of big chances conceded and stuff. They've conceded only 4 big chances in the last 4 weeks, and XG non-penalty conceded of 4.63.
But you have to put in context the fixtures.
Fixtures, absolutely. And the point is, but there was also a thread that Stevie eye tested about in general how there is a tactical shift how Bielsa is setting up his teams this year. So if I had to get one, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Please go on.
I was just saying, ultimately, if I had the choices, absolutely, I agree. Kane is the one to go for. And it is. We can talk about the goals being in the internationals against Albania, against San Marino, farmer teams as they call them. But you can still see body language. You can still see how he's reacting, how he's moving, how sharp he is. And ultimately, Kane is a world-class player. I still think he is the best player on that team. So,
yep. I saw him taking on shots that he wasn't in the last 3 months. I saw him making runs that he wasn't in the last 3 months. And from everything I've read about Conte, he's one of the best motivators, managers around. Outside of being an astute tactician, he really knows how to fire up a team. And that's something also that, stuck with me.
Right.
I know one thing that's worth one thing that is worth discussing, which we haven't discussed in this Kane versus Son debate, is the fact that we have a lot of fixtures coming up now. In like the next one and a half month, we have almost like 10 game weeks, perhaps even more. I'm not exactly sure. So with fixture congestion and rotation being a factor, the 2 million saving that you generate of Son is actually pretty significant because that allows for a better bench. Okay. Would you sort of get shoehorn Kane in your team and get a weak bench? Is it worth it? Because that is something which does favor Son, because you do need a good bench going forward, which a lot of us have right now. But I see a lot of managers getting in Kane and actually weakening that bench, because the argument is that oh, we've had so many points on the bench, right, in recent weeks. But the point is that the bench is going to be handy in the weeks to come, right? That's something which is worth considering, and that's one argument which I realistically see for Son.
And that's a point. Maybe I'll illustrate this now with my team. Now I've been planning routes on how to get Kane in. So getting Son in is quite easy. I would probably make a formation shift. I would shift Brownhill to Keenan Davis essentially. and to move the fodder over there. Or the other option was to downgrade a Diaz to, say, a Mitchell, which is actually not bad. And my point is that's where you can possibly manage that, because there's so much value now in the budget defenders. You've seen Mitchell, they're posting stats for Crystal Palace, the XGC is second to that of City. So while obviously it sounds weird to say Diaz has similar point potential as Mitchell, but it might be true.
Exactly my point in terms of the value the game is offering. In terms of, we have Cancelo, James, and Trent and Chilwell offering tremendous value. We have the 4.5 million defenders that we spoke about offering tremendous value. If Robbo's out for a while, we have Simicast offering tremendous value. Jota is offering tremendous value. There's so many 5.5 to 6.5 million midfielders that are offering great value. Zoph, if you can change to my team, because that's the structure I'm talking about, and I can cite the bench that I have. So my starting 11 at the moment is Ramsdale, Trent, Cancelo, James. I've got Salah, Foden, Jota, Bumo, and Gallagher in mid. And I've got Kane and Tony up top. And my bench reads Maupay, Duffy, and Livramento. I think that's a perfectly fine bench for the Christmas period.
Yes.
I intend on turning Maupay into a playable forward, but I do have, and I can turn a Duffy into a 4.5 million defender that's playing. But you're not necessarily, it is possible to get a decent bench while having Kane.
Yeah, but you can't get that fourth premium defender, like, that's solid.
Pranil, I really like your team, and I have the same targets in my mind as well. Salah, Foden, Jota, Kane. I think all of them are great picks going forward. But I noticed the knack of Antonio, and I think that really helps you with investing in the fifth mid, particularly. And you have someone like Maupay on your bench, you could easily be someone like an Armstrong or someone.
Yeah, at the moment I want an 8 million attacker, I'm going to be struggling to get him with Kane in my team. So I do get your point. I can't deny that.
But I really like your team going forward. It's brilliant. I think you're in for some great points in the weeks to come.
Also, just worth mentioning, because it's something we want to talk about, it's only about having that Kane captaincy option in 14 and 15. The way things are going, it's going to take even me a lot to go there. Because, I take Zoph's point, because you can't see Conte's teams blowing off opposition. And, the Everton away game that Liverpool have when Spurs have Brentford home, I think Everton's a great fixture for Liverpool, because there's always extra motivation with that being the Merseyside derby and all of that. And they've, blown apart Everton quite a few times. So it will take a lot for me to do that, but I just like having that option as an out. That's all.
No, Pranil, I think game week 15 is the big one, where Liverpool have Wolves away. And in the first section that we did, we said that Wolves haven't conceded 3+ goals in a single game, right? So I think that's the big one. When Spurs have Norwich at home and Liverpool have Wolves away, I think that could be a fixture where you can potentially captain a Spurs player. I personally think that's the only window I would go for, because I think in game week 14, I will captain Salah away at Everton.
All depends on form, right? What we see from Kane. We see Kane like banging a hat trick at Burnley. The entire shift will change.
Yep.
Right. Now should we have a look at some fixtures for the upcoming week? We have some time.
Are we not doing the game week review? Quickly, just anything that we might have missed out on?
Go back there.
Just anything that you think we haven't covered. I'll quickly.
I just think we should discuss Sanchez's replacements. A lot of people don't have a second keeper, and they're wondering if it's worth replacing Sanchez, who to get him in for, and whether or not it's worth removing him at all. So what are your opinions about this? In my opinion, I think if you have a playable keeper, someone like a Foster, or the Brighton backup Steele, Potter did confirm he's going to start. So in that case, I think there are better transfers to make. I would keep Sanchez on the bench. If you don't have a playable keeper, then I'd suggest getting in either Ramsdale, because he's making a lot of saves, and I think regardless of the fixture, he can get good points going forward. Arsenal don't seem to concede that much. Or if not Ramsdale, then my other pick would be Gaita. You just mentioned how well Palace have been doing defensively this season, and that is despite their tough fixtures so far. They've played Chelsea, City, Liverpool already this season, and to see them do so well in terms of expected goals conceded does tell you that Gaita does have good potential going forward, and he's one of the keepers who takes advantage of the pass distribution points as well in the bonus accumulation. I noticed, so he can do well for bonus too.
I think I agree with the points you have made, but I think he's very much stick because the fixtures for Brighton are still decent. right after Villa. There's Leeds. I think they kept them out both games last season. West Ham away, Southampton, Spurs, Wolves, United away, Brentford, Chelsea. And I don't think it's a big deal. Even if you don't have a Steele or a Foster, let's say you have like even a gun or something, to go play without a keeper for 1 week isn't really a big deal, in my opinion.
Fair enough. I mean, I could see a point. I mean, it's team dependent, right? I mean, there could be teams
Teams and
which
how
don't
many
exactly have a better transfer to make.
better transfer to make. That's what it really depends on. Or
Yeah.
you look at it as a good opportunity to jump on someone. Like let's say Guaita has Burnley, Villa, Leeds, United, Everton, Southampton, Watford, Spurs. Now very good fixtures all the way through December. So could look at it as an opportunity as well. But I don't think it's a transfer you necessarily have to make.
Yeah. Just wanted to actually just cite Ramsdale just made one save last game week and managed to get a bonus point. I thought that was quite cool. Because of the passing, pretty much.
Yes, exactly.
If you had to ask me who's going to be the Martinez this season, my pick would be Ramsdale. Everything says about it. He got his first England cap. There's just momentum. He's on an upward trajectory this season. That's the feel I'm
Agreed.
getting about him. Right now, for the last week's results, anything you would like to pick out over here to talk about?
Saints Villa, I mean, just people looking at Armstrong, I'd still go for Tony over him because I think in the Christmas schedule, I expect Hassan Attal to rotate his strikers.
100%.
Yeah, so
Already
that's
take one
something
blank and
that's-
Broja. I think Broja is back training.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something worth mentioning. Livramento is back training as well. We saw that in a training video, just mentioning that. United City, Foden and Cancelo. A lot of people have asked if Foden and Cancelo are good picks in the Christmas schedule. I think they're really, really good picks. You just take
Yes.
the rotation and the odd 30-minute cameo on the chin when it comes to that. And do you think we're going to be doing a lot of, okay, Foden's played the last 2 games, so let him not start this game. Do you think we're going to be doing a lot of that? You think it's a dangerous game to play?
I think it's a
that way?
dangerous game to predict Pep, especially when the guys he relies on. We saw KDB start a lot of games when he was in form. And the options are less because you have Torres injured. You have Grealish, who's possibly carrying an injury, Sterling out of form. So I would never take the risk of benching for these guys because even when they come on for 10 minutes, they can score.
Okay.
Exactly. And, coming on for 10 minutes, that tells me that, Foden, this season, he has a 45% goal involvement for City, which is by far the best among all City players. I mean, the next best is Gabby Jesus, who's almost nearly 30%. That just tells you, that whenever Foden is on the field, he's likely to be involved. And as far as Cancelo is concerned, I have had, quite a few people asking whether, it's worth shifting Diaz to Cancelo or making those kind of moves. I do think because Cancelo is right up there in terms of expected goal involvement among defenders. Cancelo, Trent, James, and Chilwell. These 4 are really standing out when it comes to defensive.
Cancelo is just not right up there. He's blowing his competition out of the water when it comes to some of the statistics. He's like, he should be priority. Like he's blowing his competition out of the water.
I feel the same way for Reece James. I still see a lot of people ignoring him, and I think his stats are mental, honestly.
Yeah. Absolutely. 16 shots. I think he's the same number of shots the last 4 weeks as Salah.
And in the last 3 game weeks, Chilwell's created 4 chances. James has created 10 chances. So all the plays just going through James's side at the moment.
Correct. Anything to talk about United?
Nothing. Nothing at the
moment. Low blow. That was a low blow. So.
I do think we'll beat Chelsea though. The game's coming up in a game week.
Sure, we'll take one for the league. I don't mind.
Yeah. It's a 2-sided coin, that one, isn't it?
Take one for the league.
Yeah. All right. Brentford, Norwich. I think Smith's an interesting appointment. I wish they went for somebody fresher though, because Smith's just out of a bad run. And when it comes to the new manager bounce, you want somebody who's had a little bit of a rest for 4 or 5 months, rejuvenated his batteries, and then gone on to managing that team. So that's something on my mind. But it's interesting because I do think Norwich have a good bunch of players in attack. When you're talking about Rashika, when you're talking about Cantwell, Pukki, Gilmore, and Norman, I think there are 5 solid players in that attack. So if Smith gets them going, things could work out.
I think he's going to play Gilmore. He's going to recognize Gilmore as a baller. I'm happy Lampard didn't take that job.
Yeah. Chelsea, Burnley. Chelsea, get your wing backs. Lukaku's back. So which is why I think Kai Havertz immediately becomes not as good as an option as he was. And Pulisic is knocking on the door. Scored for USA as well. It looks like he's getting fitter and fitter, and that's just more people that Kai is competing with.
Regarding the wing backs, I wouldn't necessarily be buying them now. Maybe James, but I wouldn't buy Chilwell now. Right when the Christmas period is starting and possibly the best fixtures have gone by, I wouldn't be prioritizing a Chelsea wing back. And James, I still would, cause Lukaku is back, which raises James' ceiling a lot further. But if you missed out on Chilwell, probably wouldn't buy him now.
Interesting. I was still looking to go there if an opportunity emerged, but interesting.
There is going to be rotation in that position over Christmas. It's inevitable.
Yep. Palace versus Wolves. Palace is actually a very, very interesting team to talk about at the moment. Bakar, you had some.
Yes, I wanted to talk about
ESR stats that you want to tell our listeners.
This is a very popular conundrum in the FPL community this week. I think Gallagher is blowing ESR out of the water. Gallagher is actually, when it comes to midfielders, he's fourth for XG this season, while ESR isn't even in the top 15. I get that ESR is a quality finisher, but his XG is around 2. While he's actually scored 4 goals, and he's highly overperforming on his XGI as well. That just tells me, that Gallagher is the pick, particularly now that I see that Milivojevic isn't playing, and that helps Gallagher move forward. Because what happens is that MacArthur is basically sitting, and that allows Gallagher to roam forward, and Gallagher takes set pieces in the absence of Milivojevic. So Gallagher is actually one of the anomalies of the season in terms of the fact that he's actually hauled in the difficult games, and that's when Milivojevic hasn't been playing. Well, in the easier fixtures, Milivojevic hasn't been playing. Gallagher hasn't hauled.
Just worth mentioning though that MacArthur might be having some hamstring troubles as well, so his minutes might be managed in the Christmas period. So Millie will play a few games. It's not like he isn't going to play a few any of the games. So that's a factor to consider. And Eze is going to be back in the frame as well because he was getting close to fitness just before game week 11. So Palace have a lot of quality up front, and Vieira so far has been taking a horses for courses approach. I just want to cite one quote that Vieira had on Wilfried Zaha, who's now had 5 returns in the last 6 game weeks. He's quietly racking them up, and the quote is that Vieira said this: "I strongly believe that he can go to a different level. He can score more goals, and he can make more assists. He can be more decisive. He has the confidence of the club and myself and my staff, and we believe how good he can be for the football club and for himself to go to a different level. I'm sure he will do it. I guarantee you, he will do it." I think he's sort of bigging up Zaha to be the talisman and realize his potential. So I'm just eyeing him up. I think it's one to monitor because Palace have a great run of fixtures right until the new year. So I think you keep an eye on that one. And if you're in the market for a cheap defender, I think whether you go for Mark Guay or Derek Mitchell, both are great options because Palace's underlying numbers were their second or third for XGC this season.
Yeah.
Second.
With the toughest fixtures.
With the toughest fixtures. So very, very solid. And I think both of them are very nailed as well. So if you're looking for a broader squad for the festive fixture congestion, I think the Palace defenders should be right up your shopping list.
What about Wolves? I think any of us own Jimenez. Bakar, you still got him?
No, I don't. Jimenez is an interesting one. I think this time around, Mexico played on Wednesday, early on Wednesday. So that gives Jimenez an extra rest day. He should be fine going to this game week. And after this week, Wolves have Burnley and Norwich. So the fixtures for the next 3 weeks are great.
Then it gets really tricky.
Then it
hold
gets
for
really
the next
bad.
3. Then
hold for the next 3, probably. Then move on.
Yeah.
Brighton, Newcastle. I think we've covered this pretty much.
Yep.
Just Trossard, I think, deserves everybody's attention. Like you mentioned, Zoph, the fixtures are really, really good. And if he's playing the next game or the next 2 games as a false 9, then I think all of us will start looking at him a lot more closely.
Absolutely.
I think
Arsenal, Watford.
I think it was a little frustrating as an Oba owner watching that game where he could have just controlled the ball and not passed it to Saka, who scored an offside goal. He could have just scored a penalty, and then I think that he had 1 goal ruled out because of him being offside as well. But swiftly moved on to Kane, and let's see what happens there. Nothing to add with regards to Watford as well. Just mentioning that they actually, when the AFCON does come around, Watford have around 8 or 9 players going there. So they're probably one of the most highest affected teams by the AFCON. So just wanted to mention that.
ESR bench of this week away to Liverpool.
If you have a better option, if it's between ESR and Livramento, I'd play Livramento.
I think that's pretty much a dilemma for most people. I'd agree with that. Livramento over ESR. Bakar, same boat?
Yes, I agree. I agree. I think actually, yeah, with Livermento, I like talking about matchups. Of you actually make fun of my hashtag matchups. But when I look at flanks and things like that, Norwich's XG is very poor. Southampton over the past 4 game weeks. Granted, the fixtures have been great. They have the best XG conceded. Norwich are conceding a lot of chances down that left flank. They're actually second for chances conceded down that flank this season. So Livermento could even get an attacking return. I have him on my bench as of now um, because my squad is strong, but I think there could be points to be had over there. I'm just hoping for the new manager bounce with Dean Smith.
Fair enough. Okay, Everton Spurs is really nothing. Leeds Leicester. Are we all? Are you guys who owns Rafinha? Bakar, you still own Rafinha?
Bakar, do you still own Rafinha at the moment?
Yes, I do, but I think I might get rid this week. I'll discuss it when it
Cool.
comes to my team. I am looking at possibly getting rid. I think he's been a very solid option to own, but I understand and take some of his points with a pinch of salt because he's been the most overperforming midfielder in terms of XG this season. So I think there are better options now out there to be taken advantage of. Um, I have no problems holding him either, but I mean, when Jota is available in the market for 1 million extra, I think I'll look to upgrade him.
Mm-hmm. West Ham, Liverpool. Discussed all Bowen. Discussed Antonio.
Yeah,
we
all the
did,
Liverpool
we've
guys.
discussed everything.
Yep.
Discussed
Let's just touch Game
everything.
Week 12. The vice captaincy discussion, as we shall call it.
I do know some are tempted to go Kane or Son cap this game week, but not for me.
Not for me. Not when Salah is at home. Liverpool, after a loss at home, I wouldn't bet against them.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a shot in the dark, right? We haven't really seen a Conte team perform as yet. I think if Spurs score 2 or 3 against Leeds United, then I'd be more convinced towards making the switch
Correct.
at the moment. And I like to be aggressive as a manager, but not going there still.
So I think, if anything, the fixtures to target this week, let us just quickly have a look over
City.
here. City have a good fixture to target. Like we discussed Norwich already. Sorry, not Norwich. Newcastle already
yeah.
we've discussed.
If somebody is an Ivan Toney owner, definitely don't sell against Newcastle, because I do believe in psychology and I do believe in extra motivation. And I do think that Ivan Toney will be a little more than extra motivated to play against a team that didn't give him a chance in the league.
While we're at this topic, a lot of managers are considering benching either of them or both of Tony Boomer. What do you guys suggest? Who to bench? Whether to bench any?
I wouldn't bench Tony. If I had to bench one, I'd bench Boomer, because, like you said, I'm a bit worried he might play as a wing back or what, I don't know. But I wouldn't bench Tony in this fixture against his old club.
Would you play Boomer or Livra?
Boomer.
Boomer, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I would go Boomer as well because of the higher
Should we
potential.
go to our teams?
Yep.
Right. This is now we have your team up running.
Yep. I read it out earlier as well. I'll just quickly go through it again. Ramsdale, Trent, Cancelo, James, Salah, who's my captain, Foden, Jota, Mbumo, Gallagher, Kane, and Ivan Toney. I did Kai and Oba to Kane and Gallagher for a hit. The reason why I took the hit also, even though I'm not captaining Kane this week, is I also believe in it. I also believe in the butterfly effect of being transfers ahead. I feel like I'm a little ahead or on par in terms of where the template is and where the game is at the moment, and I like making luxury moves which others aren't making, and I can only do that if I feel like I'm not behind the game. I don't like making band-aid moves as an FPL manager, which is why I'm happy to take the occasional hit. So this is just a bit of a macro FPL philosophy in terms of how I like playing the game.
See that Rafinha to Jota move last week has put both of you all ahead of the curve, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
even though
did miss out on Rafinha's points,
Rafinha's
but
cross.
in terms of the points,
I think all of that adds up. Like I decided to move on Foden earlier than most, and that's how I got the points, because he was in place to get that points. A lot of times when people make these moves, they only look at the result in the next game week or the next 2 game weeks. There's actually a lot more complicated factors at play, because first of all, you look at the move over 4 or 5 periods, 4 or 5 game weeks. And also another factor that you take into place is because you made those moves early, you made a bunch of other transfers which others are not making at the moment because they're behind the game, and there's no way you can calculate that or put a value to that. So that's a factor to consider. Zero regrets making that move.
Cool. You've already read out your team earlier for the audio.
Yep. Yep.
Anything you'd like to discuss in terms of benching dilemmas or anything? Pretty sorted?
Nothing. Not very comfortable with Livramento on the bench, and
It's fine.
slightly tempted
I
to
think this is what
put
I would do.
Bumo.
This is what I would do.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
I would have the exact same order as well.
Yeah, the same order as well. Mopai, I don't even know if he'll play, so yeah, probably Duffy ahead of him
Yeah.
is fair.
Yeah.
Right. This is now your team, Bakar, with Rudiger.
This is my team. So I have Ramsdale in goal, James, Trent, Cancelo, Rudiger, Rafinha, Bumo, Foden, Salah, Tony, Antonio. I actually have Vardy on my bench, Livramento second sub, and Brownhill third sub. I think Chelsea are well placed to keep a clean sheet. So
There's no
this is why I have Vardy
Tielemans
on the
also
bench.
for Leicester. It's a big factor.
Yes, I was going to come to that. No Tielemans as well, and Vardy's numbers in recent times have really dropped off. I can go three routes with my team. The first is to save a transfer, which is the safest move to do. I have 0.7 in the bank, so that's not enough to go directly from Rafinha to Jota. So either I can find a way to do Rafinha to Jota, or the other move could be that I can find a route to do Vardy to Kane. And honestly, this is kept me occupied quite a bit over the break, and I don't really know what I should do because
Sure.
this is a very tricky
This is
decision.
what kept you occupied in the break. Sure.
I was hoping I could slip that in casually.
Nice try. But I would save.
But
I would
honestly,
save the transfer.
what
Save the transfer.
you would save the transfer?
I don't
You
know
won't
what
get
else
Jota
would you
for a
do.
hit?
Who would you downgrade? Who would be a cash cow?
Either Bumo to
Rudiger.
4.5 or Rudiger to Reguilon or Emerson.
Rudiger
Or
to
even a
Region is
Palace
all right,
defender,
but then
for
what
that
will
matter.
are you going to ignore Kane, or how are you going to get the money then for Vardy and to Kane?
I lost you, Zoph.
He's asking how you're going to get the money for Kane later. Are you going to ignore Kane?
No, the plan is to probably save a transfer next week and then get Kane in after 2 weeks, maybe by downgrading Tony to a cheap striker.
Converting Vardy to
See,
Kane, right?
Vardy to Kane, yeah, and by probably downgrading
Which is not a bad idea.
one
Vardy
of my
has
midfielders or something.
Watford the week after, so which is not a bad
Exactly,
idea.
that's what I was going to say. So basically, I have to make a choice between owning Jota for the next 2 weeks or Kane for the next 2 weeks.
I would like Jota for the next 2 weeks. Would prioritize
See,
him.
it's a very tricky situation to be in because
Rudiger
the transfer isn't
to
really
Region
obvious.
isn't a bad move, I think. Rudiger to Region,
Yes,
Rafinha to Jota, that is not a bad move. Does that fund it? I think it does.
Yes, it does. It does. Yes.
That's something you can look at.
What do you think, Pranil?
Tough position to be in, but I'd
See,
make the moves
Frank.
because I'd make the moves. I have Jota and Kane on par in terms of how much I'd want them. I want Jota ahead of Kane. If I think about it, I'd want Jota ahead of Kane. Get Jota, irrespective of the fixtures. When you have a Liverpool forward at 7.5 million, get him.
Maximize the time
How
you
would
get
you
out of Jota.
yeah, how would you fund it though? Rudiger downgrade or Bumo downgrade to a 4.5? Or Rudiger
downgrade.
to someone like Reguilon or Emerson. I'm actually very curious to know what you mentioned, Baker. Who do you think is the better option? Who do they think is the better option between Royale and Regi?
He thinks Royal is a better option
But
because
very
he
bullish.
doesn't think. He's very bullish on Royal because he thinks Reguilon doesn't have the composure to finish off those chances. We also saw Reguilon subbed off early in one of the 2 games as well. So it depends on how much patience Conte gives him. He also thinks that Reguilon is a very keen learner. So he might just, because he's generally very excited in training and wants to absorb as much information as possible. So if he manages to learn that position, which he's spoken about in that interview as well, then he might be the better option because the positions he's taking are better. But when it comes to composure on the ball, he thinks Royal is the better option. There was an interesting stat that he cited where Reguilon is in the top 20 percentile of defenders when it comes to touches in the box and shots and all of that, but he's in the bottom 20 percentile of defenders when it comes to conversions. So he's going to get a bunch of shots, but he's not real. He thinks he lacks composure to finish those chances.
Fair enough. Thanks.
I just want to mention that Reguilon sub off. It was also on the yellow card, so I don't read too much into that. If you guys were watching,
Zoph, you're leaning towards the hit as well.
I don't know because I still think Rudiger could get a clean sheet Rafinha is also good. Like,
That's what makes it
Rafinha
tricky.
makes it tricky. That's
Yeah,
the
but
reason I'm
long
not
term,
doing it
gotta
this
think
week
long
also
term.
because I've got
See,
Diaz.
exactly. Rudiger, Diaz are actually good options going forward now. So it's actually
It's
it
not
could be
easy.
counterproductive getting rid of them.
That's why I think,
Yeah.
and plus you don't even know if you really want Kane that much or you want Son. I think 1 week of data could be a little bit useful as well. 1 more week.
I was hoping something would come up in the break that would make the transfer obvious, but that really hasn't happened so far.
Let's just see. Move on to my
I'd
team.
take the hit, Bakar.
Sure.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm leaning towards as well.
Yeah.
There's not because Region again is your 15-pointer guy, right?
Yeah.
You have a higher chance of 15-pointer coming from Region than from Rudiger.
Yeah. And would you be more surprised if Jota placed versus Arsenal or Rafinha got anything versus
I'll be very
Spurs?
surprised at Rafinha because Conte's entire tactical game plan now is going to be how to shut down Rafinha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I'd take the hit.
Makes sense. My team, Ramsdale in goal, Cancelo, Trent, James, and Diaz in defense. Bumo, Foden, Salah, captain Jota in midfield. Tony, Antonio up top. Foster, Livramento, Vardy, and Brownhill on the bench. So probably going to roll a transfer. I don't see anything that's necessarily worth a transfer this week. What do you guys think?
Agree. I don't see anything here.
Wait for 1 more week. See, because I like the potential.
I think it's very obvious.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Diaz gets something of a set piece with how Everton have been defending them. I think the only decision is Livra or Vardy first sub. I've gone with Livra at the moment. I think that's where we are different, Bakar. You've got Vardy as first sub.
Yeah.
In Bakar's case, actually, I'd be tempted to start Vardy ahead of Rafinha.
Yeah, I was just about to say that also as well because I was a bit surprised with that order. Ultimately, you go with the penalty taker, the home player.
Exactly. Penalties, anytime anybody can score. And he's just closer to goal and it's just a better team.
Big game player, Vardy. Whatever you say, not right with the service or whatever. I'm very uncomfortable benching him, but the only solace I'm taking is I only have one Chelsea defender. If he does wipe out a Chelsea clean sheet, it sort of balances that out. The way the Chelsea EU is, right? We're going to start taking the questions now, guys. Please send your questions in and then we'll wrap up in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Also, while you guys are waiting with us, there are about 680 of you all. Just make sure you guys are clicking on like and subscribe. If you're liking our streams, it really helps us get with the YouTube algorithm and helps us being discovered on there. So make sure you're helping us that way. All right, bring the questions in. We'll do this for about 5-10 minutes and we'll leave you to it after.
We have some questions already.
Livra or Rafinha to start?
Livra or Rafinha to start? Livra. Tough. It's very tough. I think my answer might change an hour later. Because Rafinha is so good.
Yeah.
And do you think Dean Smith might get some sort of bounce or something considering Norwich as at home and all that stuff?
Possible.
I would go with Rafinha.
You would go with Rafinha.
You won't get a consensus on that.
Yeah. Would you move Boomo for Jota with 1 free transfer or Tony for Jota with 2 free transfers? I'd keep Tony and I'd move Boomo for Jota with 1 free
agree.
transfer.
Completely agree with that.
Cornet or Bowen? Bowen is a pick to go for in maybe 3 or 4 game weeks. Cornet is a lot of people are citing Burnley's good fixtures. I don't know if they're good fixtures because I think Palace at home and Spurs at home are 2 good defenses, and even Wolves is a good defense. So I don't know if right now is the time to jump on Cornet. I don't think they're good fixtures. I think
what's the question again? Cornet or
Bowen?
I'd say Bowen. Even with the fixtures.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
As we discussed, West Ham have the potential to score against anyone. So Bowen.
Yep. If you had Aspie, would you sell for a hit? If it's for James, 100%. Because there's never going to be a good time to make that move.
That being said, I think Aspie plays this game. I think James might be playing at centre back for this one. That's what we did against Leicester a few times last season.
Yeah. It's just, you're never going to find the right time to make this switch. I think you just get done with it.
The week after is the easier fixture.
Yeah. We have... we have... I conveniently going to ignore that. We have... Mihir here with the super chat. Thanks for the super chat, Mihir. Should he go for Vardy plus Raf out and get in Kane and Gallagher? Yeah, very much. Or should he do Vardy, Raf, Bumo out and Jota, Son, Wang? Ooh.
See, this is similar to a lot of other conundrums. Basically, it's I would probably go with Jota, Son, Wang. I think that's a better move.
You find a way to get Jota and Kane in. That's my answer. I don't. That you need to figure out how to do that. Super chat from Nilesh Kapoor. Start two of these: Tony, Armstrong, Livra, and Havertz. Zoph.
Tony, Armstrong, Livra, and Havertz. I don't know about Lukaku's fitness yet. I'm not even
Definitely
sure.
start Tony.
Yeah, definitely start Tony. And I think Havertz, if Lukaku isn't like back in training, you definitely start Havertz as well.
Yep. Agree. Who is Armstrong playing?
Norwich.
Wow.
Norwich.
Wow.
Gotta
If
start him,
Lukaku
I
is
think.
if Lukaku is fit and playing, you still play Havertz. I think you still play Havertz, irrespective of what happens. Just play the guy in the better team. That's happening.
One thing's for sure, I won't play Livramento over either of these.
Any of these
three.
guys. Correct.
Yeah.
Abhishek Singh is asking, thanks for the super chat, Abhishek. Rudy, Trent, Chilwell, Cancelo, Livra, Havertz, Salah. Oh, he cited his entire team. Any transfer you might suggest? He's got Gabriel Jesus. Similar, do something similar to what I did. Downgrade Havertz and upgrade Jesus to Kane. That would be my suggestion. Oh, the super chats are flying in today. There's another one from Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. In his team, is it crazy to go for a 1 week punt on Ronaldo and then move to Kane next week if needed? I don't think Leeds United at home is a bad fixture. I think you go for Kane straight. If you're planning to move to Kane later, you go for Kane right now. What do you guys think?
I agree because I don't think you're going to captain Ronaldo. If captaincy was an issue, then maybe you could justify that. But I think Salah is our standout captain anyway.
Agreed.
All right. Next super chat from Eason. Prioritize Vardy to Kane or Havertz to Jota Foden. He has Christensen hang cover for Havertz if he doesn't play. What do you think, Bakar?
I would sell Havertz because of the fact that, as we discussed earlier, I think he's a better option than Kane over the next 2 weeks, and the fact that Vardy has Watford next week, so he can sell him the week after.
Kavit is asking whether he should take a hit for Vardy to Kane. That depends on the kind of player you are. I mentioned my reasons. I like being ahead. Yeah, Zoph wouldn't do it. I would do it. So it depends on the kind of FPL player you are. Kane, Salah, Son captain. All three of us are on Salah this week. Super chat from Michael Flattery. Sell Chilwell if he has James to help fund Kane. What do you think, Zoph?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea. Chilwell to somebody like a Mitchell. I like it.
All right, cool. Super chat from Sanjay. Guys, now we'll be stopping in about 2 minutes. So just stop with the super chats for now. Sanjay has a question. Son, Wilson, Royal, or Kane, Gallagher, Lamptey? The second one from
Lamptey. Second one, but I would personally prefer Mitchell. I know you're keen on Lamptey. I don't think Lamptey is a good idea for Christmas.
No, my opinions change. I would go Mitchell or Guehi as well.
Yeah, so Kane, Gallagher, Mitchell.
Lamptey. Super chat from Eero. I think that's the last one for the day, guys. Pukki and Jota or Wilson and Gallagher? Bakar, why don't you answer this one?
Pukki, I don't know about Pukki. Pukki and Jota, Wilson, Gallagher. I rate Jota as a better pick than Wilson, so I'd go with Pukki and Jota, I guess.
Yeah, and it's not a bad punt for the next 3 weeks. Norwich's fixture: Southampton home, Wolves home, Newcastle away. Yeah, why not? It's a fun punt.
New manager bounce.
Yeah, fun.
It's a differential for sure.
Yep. All right, that's it for this week, guys. Thank you so much for being with us. I think we're close to 90 minutes as usual, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
See you next week, guys.
Okay, one last super chat from Yash Chaudhary. Stop with the super chats now, guys. 2 to get from Son, Foden, Jota. He already has
Foden, Jota.
Foden, Jota.
Agreed. Cool. That's it, guys. See you and good luck this game week.
Good luck. Check out our new outro.
Good luck.